Sam. There's very little public discussion that I hear, and also marginal consumer awareness and some skepticism, which is kind of the next question for me. You've just released an insight into the need for consumer research in Australia. You're focusing on cultivated meat, but also on precision fermentation. Would you tell us why you think this is such an important focus?
I actually think you mentioned something just before that, before you dive into the consumer acceptance space, which is, I guess, more social acceptance. We recognise that for the sector to succeed, it needs to be accepted by more than just consumers.
Yeah.
It needs to be accepted and appreciated, the technology of the future, from a range of different stakeholders, many of which I've already mentioned. But on the consumer acceptance piece, a lot of my background is in the application of methodologies like human-centered design and co-design, where you place a future consumer or user of a particular piece of technology at the very center of the design process. There's an organization called IDEO who were effectively coined the concept of human-centered design. And they talk about a Venn diagram with 3 circles that intersect in the middle. And there are 3 elements that are required to develop a sustainable and scalable solution. One of them is the solution needs to be feasible. It needs to solve the problem. And the technologies within the cell space have proven that works. The technology works. It produces innovative, delicious, nutritious products. It needs to be viable. So it needs to have a viable financial model behind it. And this is something that a sector is working really hard on. Driving down costs of goods, and one of the critical enablers of that space is going to be having access to infrastructure, such as through the likes of Cauldron. But this is really where the government needs to step in and play a more significant role, as we've seen in other jurisdictions, so that we can prove the technology's scale and we can drive down costs of goods so that they're truly competitive. So then you've got technologies that work and they're ideally affordable. But the other circle is the desirability. And for the sector to succeed, it needs to be producing products that are desirable from an end consumer standpoint. And that's where consumer research comes in for me. It's developing the deep understanding of what are going to be critical drivers behind decision-making around purchasing from a consumer standpoint. And we're at a really tricky stage because we don't have, in the cell ag space, product in market yet. And yet, working with the right type of professionals, largely in the research space, there is a lot you can do to understand the perspectives of end consumers to then inform what products should be developed. The challenge sometimes is that consumer acceptance research is overlooked, or it's overlooked until the timing's a little bit too late, where we actually have products that are in the market. We're sort of trying to step in and play a critical role in funding and supporting social acceptance research with leading academics in Australia, so that we can start to build an evidence base on the back of which we hope the sector can inform its product development process, but in addition to that, the way in which we want to, or we believe we will need to communicate about the sector in the future.
I really welcome the research that you're doing into how we actually initiate the conversation with consumers in a friendly and supportive way, so that they see that this is a good thing for the future. I've got one final question. I'm really in the habit of granting superpowers to people, so I was wondering if I could give you one superpower, Sam, to help you achieve your vision. What would it be?
I really like the idea of being able to fly. So if you could grant me a superpower personally, I'm not convinced that's going to help us achieve our vision. It's a kind of moving towards a future where we have a sustainable, ethical, and accessible food system for everybody. But if I can kind of use that to pivot, it would be to be able to plant a money tree. But I truly do believe that one of the critical enablers of the future of this sector is going to be funding put in the right areas. And I think the right areas are around fundamental research, particularly around the research of what these technologies are going to require to scale well, and the infrastructure to do that. And the development of the future talent pipeline that we know we're going to need when we do scale, but also to support the companies really move towards the proving of the viability of their business models. But I'd love to fly, and I'd love the seeds to the money tree.
It's lovely to have time with you, and I wish you and your family all the best for the future. And I also really look forward to doing work with Cellular Ag Australia into the future. Thank you so much, Sam.
Thank you very much, Lisa. It's been a pleasure.